Now, there is no doubt that the landscape has definitely taken up a notch in terms of its competitiveness. And what we've seen over the last few years is mergers and acquisitions to take market shares, but then also partnerships. And partnerships have certainly been a focus of especially SaaS businesses, but also other organizations who want to increase their market share without necessarily establishing their own new departments and so forth. Having said that, there is no linear progress. There is no linear career path. There's no linear education how to get into partnerships. But today we are joined by somebody who has carved out a niche in exactly that space. Justin Zimmerman is our guest today. And I'm super excited for this conversation because you are connecting so many worlds, from community to content to partnerships and commercialization, everything in between. So we want to know everything about you, how you work with your clients, and also how we can leverage the power of partnerships. So with that said, Justin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, of course.
I'm honestly so excited for this conversation because you've got such an interesting background and you're connecting different worlds to create your economy of one and your own commercial opportunities. But you didn't get there just overnight. Can you give us a bit of a background? How did you get to where you are right now? And what exactly is it that you do and help your clients with?
Yeah, sure. So the background is a history of direct response copywriting. And so I tell people the first partnership I had was with my readers. And back in the day, that were blog and email subscribers. And so to understand their worlds in a very clear, probably one of the most customer-centric, earliest customer-centric disciplines out there is, what are their pain points? What are their problems? Where are they at? What do they need to hear? How does your product solve that problem? And so as I progressed from copywriter to director of content to then director of partnerships, I took with me the lens of, what is missing in the world of my customers. And so when you add partnerships to it, you're really looking to skill sets, apps, and I would say those are the real two big areas. And so they either need an app to help to get a job done better, faster, cheaper, more effectively, or they need a set of skills to leverage those apps. And then sometimes they do need an agency and implementation partner, depending on the complexity of the stack of apps being put together to help them operate and connect those things. And so I just kind of follow the breadcrumbs. And so partner marketing specifically is really just an adjunct to regular marketing. In fact, it's somewhere where I started. I didn't really ever learn. Google AdWords, was never a master of SEO, but what I was a master of finding other companies who had my customers that had some adjacency to how our companies could work together from a product standpoint, and then was able to really make deals pretty much my whole career, connecting two companies' sales and marketing systems together to allow those leads to flow. We now call them near-bound leads. To me, they were just called joint venture deals or co-marketing deals. And so as the cost per click continues to rise and the competitiveness of noise in the marketplace increases, for me, the safe haven's always been, where does trust already live? And trust already and continues to live inside of the customer databases, inside of those account executives, those marketing managers, and sometimes founder-led companies have built somewhat of a cult following around their product or service to then leverage that trust and find a combined offering to then put in front of all companies and all customers.
Oh, this is so powerful, and your explanation is so succinct. Even though the foundation of what you do hasn't changed, it always comes down to what is it that you're struggling with and how can we best serve you and solve the problem for you. But it's now also connecting multiple solutions with each other, and also what you mentioned, brand by association, basically who already has trust in the market. How can we tap into this community and how can we leverage that to fast track our own success? Now, in your own words, because partnerships, back in the day is quite different to what it's now when the layer of tech is included. How would you define a partnership in your own words?
Well, partnerships, again, really fall into three main categories and buckets. I mean, you've got tech-to-tech partnerships where you're connecting two apps via an API to help get that data flowing and that those two tools working better together. And there's often a story that can be told around, hey, here's what you can now do with this one plus that one. And those will tend to, where I say the API ends, the partner content strategy begins. Also, usually people know me about the saying, integrations don't equal partnerships. You can build your APIs and have them talk together, but where the partnership really begins is where the API ends. And then that really becomes your go-to-market strategy, and where partnerships begins is really connecting those two companies' sales and marketing systems together. And so, categorically, you've got tech to tech partners, and you have your partner managers, partner marketers talking together around how you can come up with sales and marketing solutions that continually brand and make impressions across, whether it's the sales teams at both companies, the SDRs at both companies, the funnels and onboarding systems. One of my specialties is partner webinars, which we can get into a second later. And so there's really that category. And then on the flip side, you also have agency partners who are building for the sake of a customer's tech stack, usually like 10, 20, 30 salespeople will be, sitting on top of this MarTech implementation. And so you'll have these sales operations teams who need really good solutions to pass data, track attribution, provide some level of acquisition, possibly if it's a marketing-led agency. And then there's the how do they include your app in that stack. And so they're really trying to create a new service offering. And so I've got a couple of projects in the works right now across the Pipedrive, Aircall, Woodpecker, and Zapier ecosystem. So we have an implementer we're working with to create a bundled solution that solves for a very clear outcome that these companies are looking for. So that'd be an agency or an implementer solution. Then you have resellers, and you have referrals, and you have affiliate partners. And usually referrals and affiliate partners kind of fit into the category of affiliate is they do the whole deal from top to bottom of funnel. They're your outsourced marketing team. You're paying them a 20% commission, kind of like you would on cost of sales, cost of marketing. And they're driving the traffic through to and completion of sale. And, you're paying them for that. Whereas usually a referral partner is like half the journey, where they're making kind of a warm introduction and sending you some sort of, hey, Joe Schmo said that, you'd be a great person. And they're doing some level of qualification and sending you essentially leads, but not deals, right? So affiliates are deals, and referral partners are leads. And then you have your resellers, who are just can be a menagerie depending on the type of company that and product you have. But they're, as you can imagine, they can white label your product. They can include your software in it. You can take your product and they're bundling it up with another whole system and tool that they are including. So like maybe a good example is one of my clients, woodpecker.co. They've got an email tool. And so part of the partnership behind the scenes that you can't see is they've got an integration that's part of their solution that does checks for email bounces, right? And so you don't have to go get a separate tool. It's just part of the process. And behind the scenes, there's a partnership there, and that's bundled there. So those are probably the top like 4 or 5 categories of partnerships.
And what I hear out is that yes, we are leveraging technology, but at the same time, this is only the start, and then partnerships and people are actually taking over. And over the last few months, especially with OpenAI tools popping up everywhere, people are so worried that they're losing their jobs and so forth. And I always say, you're not losing the job to technology, you're losing the job to a human who knows how to leverage technology and can focus on the more human traits. Can you talk a little bit more about the role of a partnerships manager? Because it's not something that you can go to uni for or can go do a course and learn how to do it. What are the traits that somebody needs to have, and what makes a partnerships manager successful in their role?
Yeah, I didn't go to school for it. So first and foremost, the lens that a partnership person should have is what's in the best interest of my best customers, not all my customers, but my best customers. And so if you have an understanding of like what that slice breakdown is, those 5 to 6 key dimensions and features of what best customers are, then you have the lens to know how to represent your company in dealing with other partners. Because there's just so many partners and partnership types out there that it can be overwhelming. So your first real set of skills is to understand, how do you value customers, and how do you look for and find them in other partners? Now, of course, there's different partner programs, partnerships at scale. I tend to focus on more of strategic partners, one-to-one partners, your top 5 to 15 partners who are going to drive the most revenue. And I just continue to see so many in most SaaS companies. It just really comes down to, those key partners, and it's usually not a element of breadth as much as it is depth with a partner. So knowing that, then knowing who and what other partners that have your best customers is that really first set of skills. And then the next one really is for me is goal setting and aligning internally. And so first and foremost, the next set of skills, and you hear it all over the place, is how do you get buy-in from your departments across your company? And so whether it's me telling you this or all the different partner meetups that I do on my site, which is all virtual, they all say the same thing. Get internal alignment. What is your product team? How are they going to be supported? What do you need from them? What are you going to give them? Your sales team, vice versa. And so just across the whole spectrum of partner. And so partnerships influence and work with all your internal teams first. And once you have an understanding of what you're going to need from them and what they can expect from you, then you can, with some reliability, go to the market, go to essentially partners and say, okay, here's the game plan and here's what I can promise you. Because if you don't have that internal buy-in and you don't know how to create the awareness, alignment, and just communication. In fact, I made a joke on my last webinar. I thought it was funny, but it was also true. Is that, the director of partnerships is actually, I got a lot of thumbs up on this. Director of partnerships is actually the director of internal marketing. And so if you think about that, then internal marketing is really how do you get people engaged and involved in your products, involved in your partnership deals, willing and ready to send you leads, send you feedback, because you're going to need their insights. Because for the most part, in medium-ish to larger size partnership teams, you're not going to be the person on the front line talking to customers. You're going to have proxies across your company. And so you're going to have to learn how to find out what and who said how and what and why and where, and be that great data capture, listener, interactor, communicator. So that way, when you do go to partners, again, both having the lens for what's in the best interest of the best customers, as well as what's in the interest of your biggest advocates inside of all those major departments, which have their KPIs. Really, those are the two things. Once you have alignment with customers and alignment with internal stakeholders, teams, you can then get a clear idea of what you can say, what you can do, what you can offer other partners. Because I've made the mistake before of going first to the market, going first to the partners, and then coming back and not having the bandwidth or wherewithal to really support the great ideas and initiatives that we came up with.
And I think it's not something typically just for partnerships, but it's also for digital transformation projects or any kind of change projects. When you don't have the internal buy-in and people are supporting your idea, you're not going and getting anywhere, which is why the failure rate is so high of those projects. And what you also highlighted was the power of the human strength in terms of communication, critical thinking, aligning goals, or also, how would I say, agendas. Because just because I'm saying I want that doesn't necessarily mean I want exactly that, but I might want something below the line. So this is again where critical thinking and empathy comes in. And what we always talk in the trusted authority framework is how can you get people buy into your ideas, into your pitch, also when you don't have the official title, because the future of work is a lot more collaborative. It's not that you work 20 years and then you get eventually the senior title and then you can make the decisions. It's a lot more fluid, a lot more agile. And this is exactly where we as humans should shine, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Now, in terms, you've seen many partnerships. What are the traits, or what do we need to look out for? And what would you say makes a partnership successful?
Yeah, the number one thing I look for, and was it in my last post? This is one of my posts. Are the people that you're working with excited to work with you? Are they easy to work with? And do they show up on calls? And so it sounds really elementary, but you can, whether you get the answer from me or get the answer from Marco DePaulis, who runs $50 million partnership program, or go talk to Jeff Reekers at Call, recently moved on, former CMO, complete ecosystem led company, multiple dozens and dozens, not hundreds of apps. When in the early days he said, when you start off, the number one thing that will kill a partnership to look out for is they're too big and you're trying to go after the giant ones, and you're not equipped to really interface to meet the level of demand that they're going to have for you. And so you're wasting your time trying to go after the big ones, and they're not really going to work with you. I think that's one of the big mistakes. And then, converse to that is, or inverse to that, is ignoring the smaller, medium-sized potential partners who are at your level, who have the hunger, desire, and willingness to work with you. And so you can't build a partnership program if you don't have someone who's willing to partner with you. And so that's kind of sounds simple, but that's really like, you can't get good at an outcome, emotion, an exercise. You can't build a skill set and muscle memory internally if there's not someone else, at the gym willing to work out with you, right? And so that's kind of what one of my big takeaways from both my experience and people I look up to's experience have told me, especially in the early days. Like, and so many people are listening to podcasts like these around partnerships and saying, well, where do I start? And the answer is, one, like, who has a good alignment with potential customers with you, and then two, who's willing to meet you at the table to test and try a couple of things. And I can look back on a dozen of different occasions, and that's been one of the defining factors is, are they willing to work with me? And am I willing to work with them? Now, there is a couple of, I would say, longer tail versions of this that, if you've got a really unique, like, first to market app that no one else has, and there are a lot of copycat apps out there. There are a dozen of these and a dozen of those and these types of CRMs. But if you're like one of the first apps out there, especially in a niche or a marketplace, and you've got like an exceptional product, there are opportunities to build integrations into those companies and forge those relationships that allow your product to be like the winning default choice, because there is no functionality currently available within that ecosystem or that app. And so if you are the first to build that out, there is kind of, you beat the other company on the roadmap to their own like feature, and you're just going to be better at it because you're a point solution in that in that broader, more all-in-one product. And so I have seen on occasion, if you're really first to market with that product, and you can attract bigger partners to work with you because you're just filling a gap in their customers' needs and feature stack that they may not get to, or if they do get to it, you're just going to be so far ahead and so much better that it's going to be better for them to partner with you than it is for them to go build it on their own.
Oh, so good. Now, you are also, your background is content creation. You are an incredible content creator on LinkedIn, but also a community builder. What role does content and community play when it comes to creating awareness? Because I think for so many businesses, especially for the larger, less agile and more established organizations who have been around for 150 years, partnerships is not necessarily something that they think of straight away. But at the same time, this is one of the couple of ways to stay relevant. How can we partner up and create more market share? What role would you say does community and content play in creating awareness for potential partnerships?
Audience, attention, and trust is everything. And so, for the bigger companies out there, maybe they should pay attention to smaller communities. But I'm not a big corporate like enterprise. I don't come from that background, so I would be somewhat like unqualified to really answer it from that lens. But what I can say is, when you have an audience of people who know, like, and trust you in a vertical or a niche, or by role or by title or by industry, people come to start wanting to partner with you. So call it by mistake, call it just following instincts. For the last 4 or 5 months, I've just maybe 6 months have doubled down on content creation, and sharing the playbooks that I know and I use, and then sharing the playbooks others. And because there's been an information gap, and the demand for partnership content is so high and the supply of it is so low, and I happen to be, coming from a content background, it was kind of a nice little, a kismet moment where I just realized that if I were to bring together what I've done for so many other companies, and focus that creation aspect on myself as the brand and the product, that there's the chance that, I could position myself as somebody in the community. And I'd even go one step further and to say that I was just trying to satisfy my own need. And so for like micropreneurs, entrepreneurs, like what I really wanted was, because the supply of successful information and playbooks was so low, I had to go out there and generate it and create it for myself. And so my content strategy has always been, prior to the buzz around community, is a community-based strategy. At one of my last companies, and I point to this one, I built a go-to-market team, a content team based on what I called the content community. So I found the top 100 customers inside of this company, and I built a strong, almost one-to-one relationship with them, interviewed them, talked to them, put them on a special list, communicated them within a unique way, offered them special incentives on how they could influence what the things that we produce based on what they want, what they need, what's missing, right? Skill set being one of the things that impacts retention of products. It's not just the apps that stack together, it's their ability to use those apps together. And so knowing that, I built this team around community, and we started generating content both from the best playbooks that the people in using the software had to offer. And so I just took that playbook and I applied it to myself and said, well, what do I need? And so because there was this supply problem for expert level partner playbooks, partnerplaybooks.com happened to also be available. That tells you how lacking in supply the community. So I bought partner playbooks, and I just said, let me interview people and start creating my own meetups to learn. And then that turned from 7 people on the first one to 20 to 50 to 70. And I think the most recent one, we had about 330. One of them, we had about 560 people registered for them, all within the community. And so because I was trying to solve my own problem, and then I have a saying, seek your highest self and invite others, and I was inviting others to learn along with me, that this side project turned into its own business that has positioned me as somebody who's known, liked, and trust across the industry. And so it's given me access to, and I would say anybody and everybody looking to start a business, call it again accidental or strategic. I realize that most people go to create a product first, and then they go to the market second, and then they say, hey, market, do you like my product? Then you got to go through that conversation that you all hear about, is product market fit. Is this what you want? No. Is this what you want? No. Is this what you want? No. And there's that iterative loop, and there's kind of, in a certain way, no way around it. But the approach I'm realizing now is, if you can create community first, content for that community, and build an audience, and when you have 500-600 people showing up for your stuff, you have their attention, you have their trust, that you can start asking questions around, well, what's missing in your world, what's missing in your market, and you can go to the market first, then build your product. And so that's not something I necessarily invented. There's a couple of books behind me, one of them by Joe Pulizzi called Content Inc., where he's just basically figure out your content in your community, and then go to audience first, go to product second. And so that book's almost 10 years old by now, which is crazy. But it's I'm seeing, if you want social security, if you want job security, don't put it all into one employer, or even 1 or 2 consulting clients or projects. I realize that my social security comes from having a relatively small audience, but it feels real, of coming close to 2,000 people in 6 months. And so if you can find a niche, serve the community first. I work 12 hours a day, and half of that time is spent one by one, interacting, chatting, emailing, and building really personal connections that maybe this doesn't scale forever this way, but gosh, 6 months later, I would never have guessed that I am where I am today, with access to so many smart, great people, and people showing up by the hundreds to my stuff.
For anyone who's been multitasking, I highly recommend you to go back 2-3 minutes and listen to that over and over again, because I think you just literally had a mic drop moment right there. I interviewed Mark Schaefer a couple of episodes ago, and he just released his new book, Belonging to the Brand, Why Communities Are the Last Great Marketing Strategy. And you said exactly the same. And nowadays, what we also see, and even though Joe Pulizzi's book is 10 years old, I think it's more relevant than ever before, because what we are seeing is the trust in company brands and institutions like government and so forth. It is at the lowest ever. So how can you build trust? And trust leads to transactions, is through conversations and content. And I'm curious to know from you, I mean, this is your background, but so many executives and leaders from organizations and even client managers, they're still so reluctant to put themselves out there, to share content, to curate conversations. Like, you don't even need to know everything. But what tip would you give them to A, give it a go, and B, how to get started with content creation?
Yeah, sure. I just want to address one thing that came to mind before that, is that when you're looking at people's social followings and counts, What's funny and surprises me is I will see a company that has, or even a person that has 20, 30, 40,000 followers, but then you go look at like their engagement on their posts and you see like 15, 20, 30. I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. Something's not right when you have, a massive following but no engagement or low engagement. And that tells me that that's the sign of being a billboard in the market, but not in the market with your customers. And so then what strategy, again, I mean, I'm new to this in some way, but I've been doing this for a really long time in other ways. I've got 3,500 followers right now, but I've got, like I said, close to 2,000 people who've opted into my stuff. And so if I look at the ratios of followers to opt-ins to people who show up on my stuff, like, that you should be connecting your outward top of funnel. In my case, I'm in B2B, so everybody's on LinkedIn. That's where everybody's at. And the reason why I feel like, and the tip I could share, the reason why I'm being successful with what I'm doing, and the tip I could share is I'm an operator also sharing what I'm doing. And so people know and trust me because I'm not just the copywriter for ABC company. I'm not the head of marketing for ABC company. I'm actually doing the work and putting the time in and sharing what's working, what's not. So there's a level of authenticity that and then, well, how do companies and brands take advantage of that? Those are called influencers, right? And so either you can hire an influencer to come in who's actively practicing or still known for practicing in that space, and you can bring them in and have them share what they know and have them help you with their content strategy. So that way you can start producing things that resonate with your ICP, because that's all it is, partner playbooks. It could be sales playbooks. It could be HR playbooks. It could be veterinarian playbooks. It could be dog walker playbooks. I mean, people just want to know, can you help me get my job done better, faster, cheaper, more effectively? Have you been there? Have you done it? And can you help me be better at what I'm trying to accomplish? And that is really just like the plain and simple fact of the content strategy. And so then once you understand what those needs are, you understand who those people and what their needs are, then you either need to go partner with somebody in the space who has the credibility to share that message back out and align with your brand, or you need to bring someone internally that you can then help position your content as that expert's content. And there's some proxies to it through customer success driven content initiatives. But for the most part, if you're not getting traction with your content, and content really means like people showing up and wanting to hear what your message is. When you can get 300, 400, 500 people on a webinar every single month, you have a sense of power in the market that other people are going to want, hear, and see, and they want to partner with you. And so that is the last bastion as ChatGPT and all these AI tools start to eat up and process all the written language aspects of it. What you're going to be left with, they're audio and video from people like me and who are sharing back with the market what they've done before the algorithm gets to it and starts to avatar it. And so I feel like, your content strategy is going to be community based and it's going to be event based, because those are just things that can't be replicated. And so as those jobs still exist, there's still going to be a hunger and a need for all levels of content, but that premium kind of beyond the reach of the algorithm API right now is going to be community, authenticity, and that's going to come from events, webinars, and live interactions that just can't be replaced at the moment, and will be that, like you said, last bastion of marketing.
So good. Now, speaking of events, community, and content, 100% recommend to follow you because you always drop so much gold into your LinkedIn posts, and you are the perfect example of often just having text-based posts and they go bananas. So we don't need to have fancy videos and everything, even though it's the next best thing, but it doesn't need to be. If it's good content, if you've got the right type of community, you get traction for sure. Now, what is the best way? Because I know that you are hosting events, that you have an incredible community. What's the best way for us to get involved in it, be part of it, and connect with you further?
Yeah, just go to partnerplaybooks.com and you'll see the past playbooks that I've covered, past people I've had to share their playbooks with me, like Scott Brinker from HubSpot, head of ecosystem over there, and myself, of course, focusing on partner webinars. And every month I try to find a couple of key people who've demonstrated real practical, tactical things that they've done. And I bring them on to learn from them. And then I send out one email a month, and I say, hey, would you like to come along? I'm going to go learn from so-and-so. And then, a couple hundred people say, yeah. And then they show up. And so, if you want to come learn more about partnerships and how other people are building them in all sizes and types of companies, go to Partner Playbooks, and there'll be a little link somewhere, I'm sure, for you to say get invited or come to the next playbook. I'll send you an email with a Calendly invite, and I'll see you there.
Excellent. Well, honestly, thank you so much for being so candid with the conversation, giving us all your tips, tricks, and tools and strategies. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for you in 2023, and I'll put all the links in the show notes that people can be part of your community, because I think you're doing an incredible job doing that.
Thank you, Petra.